Greetings, Earthlings.
Aren't we beamed to other planets yet?
Depends on how good their internet is. I don't know.
This is the Carmudgeon Show.
Available now on Earth.
On planet Earth. My name is... because I speak alien, and that is hyphen.
Which oddly sounds exactly the same in Alien.
Yes.
This episode of the Carmudgeon Show is about a hybrid 911, a hybrid air-cooled 911, presented, created, engineered, built by Vonin, and includes our impressions about whether it completely ruins the 911 or whether it is just more of the same 911-y goodness that we love.
And if you're not a fan of air-cooled 911s, couldn't give a fuck about them or hate them, you probably still should listen, because this is an interesting lesson in the benefits of electricidad.
Yep, and how they could be used to
change your experience in an old car or a new car.
Exactly.
Brand new, old, anything you want. Derek's going to clap. We're going to get right into it.
That was like a C minus.
You can put away your homework now.
Never.
I see the dog has not eaten it.
Yes, I eat my own homework.
Thank you. This episode of the Carmudgeon Show is sponsored by Battery Tender. Because you know why?
Tell me why.
When is the best place for you? What's the best time for you to have a dead battery?
I don't know. When you roll into the garage adjacent to your charger.
That is not the best. That is the least worst time.
Okay. The answer to that question is never.
Yes, exactly. And so Battery Tender has a number of solutions to that end.
Mm-hmm. Including the charge and start.
Charge and start.
So that means it does charge and start. That's clever. I see where they got the name.
This is something I've not seen from any other manufacturer, which is a jumper box together with a battery charger maintainer in one thing. Mm-hmm. Which does beg the question, are those things geographically aligned? Like, one of those things I typically have at home, and the other one I typically take with me. And I've never seen them together. I wonder
if you need that.
Yeah.
I would argue that you just keep it always with the car, and then no matter where you are. I mean, I actually do encounter this in the course of collection management. I do a lot of collection management, and one of my clients has cars in like 3 places. And what happens is that you leave the charger, the battery charger, and then you take the car somewhere else, and there's no battery charger for it. If you leave it with the car, and it does that function as well. In fact, every car has a jumper box separately from a tender in it. And so this product probably sounds like it could be very useful for this client.
Well, you should give this client the coupon code Haggerty20 to get 20% off of Battery Tender.
Yes. And they probably need a URL to go with that also.
Oh, that's probably in the description. I don't know. I just work here.
Okay.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Battery Tender. Now, batteries brings us to lithium ion, brings us to that.
That's a battery, is it?
Well, there's a battery in it, as most Porsches do.
So far, I'm with you. Seems like a Porsche 911.
I'm trying to draw a string here. So yes, behind us is a 1980 what?
8.
Is an 1988 Porsche 911.
Carrera 3.2.
Yes.
This will be the G50.
In dark blue.
Yes.
It's difficult for us to light in a black studio.
Yeah, it looks black. The color name is imaginatively from Porsche is...
Dark blue?
Dunkelblau. Yeah.
Dunkelblau.
Yeah.
With orange wheels and a big banner on it that says Vonin.
Okay.
So this is exciting. I have waited, well, technically my entire life for this, but I have waited 6.5 years, 6 years and 5 months for this moment. 6 years ago, I got a phone call from this company called Vonin, and they asked me to come drive a car with Vonin Shadow Drive VSD. I do like that there's a bit of a shadow on the wall behind the car. I think we're sort of helping them branding.
Driving the shadow.
And basically I knew very little about it other than they had taken a 991.1 Porsche 911 and made it a hybrid. To which I said, great, how many MPGs does it get? And will it sit in the left lane like a Prius? And they said, no, this is about performance.
So does it, so what's the number of MPGs?
I don't give a fuck. What it done to do was make a 991 much quicker. And it's an ingenious system. VSD, as I think they still call it that, is an ingenious system of a sandwich motor put in between the engine and the transmission, that in the case of that 991, just read the CAN bus data from the car's onboard computers and would just apply torque in one of 3 different modes. There was sort of overboost mode, which is kind of a party trick. And then there was a shadow mode, which sort of just the system faded into the background and only helped it when you really needed to. And then a sport, which made itself much more announced. It was rated at that time at 150 horsepower and 150 pound-feet of torque, and required basically no additional hardware other than the motor and the inverter and
no alterations to the car.
Yeah. And it was a 1 kilowatt-hour battery that's sort of up front. It would do regen. You can probably read all about it because I wrote an article for Road and Track on this. The car was magic. It was transformative in that the car just became, I think I called it at the time, the world's first 5-liter Porsche 911.
Yeah.
Because the system worked basically transparently, other than you could hear a little bit of an electric motor whine. And the inverter was in the car with you in that one. And so you could hear that sort of futuristic sound. But otherwise, you would have no idea that it was just a stock, slow, quote unquote, by comparison.
Yeah, slow with 350 horsepower or whatever it was.
Well, now it had 400 and something pound-feet of torque instead of 200 and something pound-feet of torque, and it was transformative. I loved it. We dynoed it because I wanted to see what the real difference was, and the whole experience was great.
What was the figure? Oh, I'm just asking you to go deep past digging.
I hope.
Oh, he's on the move.
Derek,
He's got the computer.
You make me do this. What I did, if I remember, yes, I did undo this. Horsepower gains. So the peak gain in blue, which is street mode, was 120. Oh, it's not going to tell me. 112.03 wheel horsepower was a peak gain. Raw gains in torque were about 120 pound-feet at the wheel. So the system did as advertised. I think the more important thing, we can, there's a million charts that I can put up. But the most important thing was I entered in all of the data into my little VDC, which is my not patented spreadsheet that I made in college. That was Vehicle Dynamics Calculator. And you could see the difference between what the system would do installed and turned off, and based on the torque curve. And so 0 to 60 when a standard 991 would have been, according to the dyno data, 5.0 seconds. And this takes out the launch and sort of moderates any wheel spin or anything in this particular algorithm. With the system, it dropped to 5.2. It
went from 5 to 5.2?
No. That's the system turned fully off.
Oh.
And the reason why is that system added net weight of about 175 pounds to the car, from my notes and story back in the day. Plus, it presumably adds a little bit of drag. But with the system in street mode, that 5.0 and 5.2 dropped to 4.0. And then in overboost, it dropped to 3.6 seconds. Quarter mile went from 13.5 to 13.7 to 12.2 to 11.8, and gained 11 miles per hour in the process. And then passing times were just ridiculous. 50 to 7th in 5th gear, for example, 50 to 70 in 5th gear went from 6.4 to 6.7 with the system, then down to 4.6 and 3.9. I'll post that chart online. Most importantly, this turned this car into what effectively would have been the case if somebody had spent $50,000 and built a 5-liter, if you could, 5-liter high revving Porsche engine.
Still naturally aspirated.
And what I loved the most about the system was you're not changing the character of the car. You're just adding to the character. The engine computer didn't even know that the Vonin system was there. Just suddenly the car was faster.
Which means if you smog it, no problem.
Computer don't know. What the computer don't know is what the emissions testing people can't see.
Yes, correct.
I loved it. And I also loved that there was some other point I was going to make, and I don't remember. I love that it didn't change the character of the car. But what I said to the Vonin guys is it's a hard sell. The system was $75,000. This is again 6 years ago. And I thought it was brilliantly executed. It worked flawlessly. The only issue is that it would run out of thermal capacity. So the system would sort of protect itself from overheating. And in overboost mode, you could get it to turn off within 10 seconds. But overboost again was a bit of a party trick. In sport mode, I did a climb. I climbed a whole 1,000-foot mountain, and it was at the top that it was just about to derate. And that was a pretty significant stretch of tomfoolery that I had engaged in. And it recovered. Stop it. It's my job. Professional driver.
Professional tomfoolery.
Professional.
It's not tomfoolery in that case.
It's Thomas foolery.
Yes.
Dr. Thomas foolery to you. Thank you. I want to make a t-shirt about that. This is not tomfoolery. It's Thomas. Anyway.
That feels like something that belongs on a Throttle Heist.
Hello, my name is Dr. Thomas Foolery. Anyway, it was a bit of a hard sell to put a $75,000 power upgrade on a car that A, didn't need it, but B, was also only worth $75,000.
Yeah, with the plan to sort of depreciate in the future as it, continues to age, because at that point the car was 991.1 was 7 years old if it was 6 or 7 years old if it was an early car.
Dude, I don't know.
And so then, further depreciation ahead, it's a bit difficult to justify putting that kind of money into a depreciating car.
And so my suggestion to the Vonin guys was like, this is amazing. I would love to see this on an air-cooled car. And they're for a number of reasons, like the one behind us. For a number of reasons. Number one, the value of the cars is growing up, which helps. They're appreciating. And number two, they need the power more than, especially cars without variable valve timing. They have sort of flat. These cars are known for long gears and very
sports car like power delivery.
Yes. Ain't nobody home until 5,000, and then it's over at 6.
Yeah, and that's true for the older cars. I mean, this car has reasonable cubes. It's actually not so like that, but by modern standards, it's a slow car. I mean, this is a car that did in period 0 to 60 in the probably 6 seconds, low sixes range. The Carrera Coupe.
I would love to see car drivers street start on that, because
the 5 to 60.
If you got this car to 60 miles an hour, you were doing a 6,500 RPM clutch dump to get it moving. I would guess the 5 to 60 street start on that car feels closer to mid 7s or 8. They're fucking slow unless you're beating them up. And part of that is gearing. Part of them is just the way they deliver torque. The big, huge problem with doing this is you don't have a CAN bus. So you can't just read the information coming from the powertrain, which presents another level of engineering requirement. So you have to figure out a way to get throttle position, and you're not dealing with an automatic. So you have to deal with any gearing issues, shit like that. 6.5 years later, they called again. Hey, we have an air-cooled car. And I tried to tell you as little as possible, but you're too fucking smart, and it's got stickers on it. I really wanted this car to show up with you knowing nothing, and I say, go drive.
You already told me what it was before it arrived.
I had to. But you did go and drive the car without really knowing anything about it.
Correct.
And so I would love to hear what your impressions are before we further.
My first impression is that it felt like a 911, like it felt very familiar. It did everything I expected it to. It sounded and behaved exactly the way that a 911 normally does, except for it was, a lot faster.
Except the starter motor.
Yes, no starter motor, which was the first thing I noticed. The starter motor is very distinctive noise on these cars, and this car didn't have that.
Because it uses, for the record, it uses a sandwich motor to spin the engine up. So it's just...
Yeah, so it's just running on, which is very odd because it's a very modern experience in a car that's otherwise very much not modern. Mm-hmm. I've owned 4 G50 Carrera 32s. So this is an 88. It's a G50 car, which we'll get back to that in a minute, why that's important. So, I know what they are normally like. I've had hot rodded ones that, one that weighed probably 300 or 400 pounds less than normal that had a little bit of motor hot rodding done to it. And, this car maintains the character of the original car. And, we did this episode about the Sacrilege Motors EV 911, which obviously is a dramatic character shift in the modernization, in the application of tech
because it's fully electric.
Because it's fully electric. Right. This car was not like that. It felt like a hot rod 911 is basically what it felt like. But it felt, it was still identifiably very much an air-cooled 911. To me, this car felt like a 2,200 pound 911 with 300 horsepower is functionally what my seat of the pants feeling was driving this car. And 2,200 pounds in a 911 means that it has no back seats and it has manual windows and no AC and no heat and maybe like fiberglass body panels and no sunroof and no sound insulation and no radio and it's a bunch of stuff you have to remove in order to get to a 2,200 pound 911. It's very fun, but it's a little bit focused. So
a 2,200
pound 911 is that's just the experience. Right. And this car, has all of that stuff in it because it's a standard Carrera 3.2 in terms of features, which means it has very feeble air conditioning, but electric windows. It has cruise control. Cruise control never works in these cars, so I assume this one also doesn't, but maybe it does. That would make it one of the finest in the world if the cruise control worked. But it has all of the sort of functions and featurality. God darn.
You're struggling with English today.
It has stuff in it and does things, is what I'm trying to say, of a standard Carrera 3.2, which was, at the time a $40-something thousand car. And so, Porsche put a bunch of stuff in it that American consumers demanded, like central locking and electric mirrors and a sunroof and air conditioning. And
so what do they weigh factory? They were 32?
No, I would say factory, this car was probably 2,800 pounds or so.
Okay.
Mine was 2,550 and it had been dieted. It had no soundproofing and no back seats and no air conditioning and blah, 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 fiberglass engine lid. So I would say these cars are probably 28 something out of the box. Okay. So one of my first questions about this system is how much does it weigh?
Right.
There is some weight savings because you have no starter and you have a lighter flywheel and let's see, was that the major?
There's a bunch of other ones. So I have a list here. Well, once my email downloads, because I email myself like a weirdo. I find this the easiest way to send myself notes that haven't arrived yet. There we go. Okay, so the raw system does still weigh 175 pounds. All the componentry is similar in design and identical in philosophy to the 991 I drove, with just some revisions that have been possible over the years. So the raw system weighs about 175 pounds, but the flywheel has been taken out. And
replaced with a motor.
Replaced with an electric motor, but that saves about 15 pounds if it's a single mass flywheel. I'm guessing closer to 30 if it's a dual mass.
Which this apparently was originally a dual mass.
Starter motor is apparently 25 to 30 pounds on these cars. That's shocking to me, especially how feeble they sound, because they're, but whatever. The 12-volt battery has been replaced with a anti-gravity lithium-ion battery, which I find really interesting. The problem with all the new modern, the drop-in lithium-ion battery replacements is they can deliver the cranking amps, but they don't have capacity. So you kill them very easily, and phantom drains will kill them when the car's sitting. That's why you need a battery tender. But this has the ability to just jumpstart it off of the high voltage hybrid battery, which sort of solves that issue. So the battery was 65 pounds and is now 6 or 7 pounds. And then on this car, they removed the spare tire and filled the front with a slightly smaller fuel tank. So they cut 4.5 gallons out, which would be a problem on most cars, but Porsches have 20-gallon tanks to begin with.
Yeah.
And so you've lost, 25% of cruising range, and replace that with the battery and whatnot. So, I thought I had written down what the total...
110.
It was 110 pounds?
Net weight change is 110 pounds increase.
And approximately where it used to be, because the motor is in the back, but and motor inverter in the back, but you
lose the battery in the front and pick up battery in the front.
Yes.
Other battery in the front.
Which is closer to the center of gravity of the car. So actually probably, yeah. Needless to say, I don't know these cars well enough to know. I did haul ass on a back road in this, and nothing felt not Porsche to me, but I would never.
Yeah, you fortunately had recent experience driving my torsion bar 911, my SC.
Yes. And so this one is 215 horsepower stock.
217 technically. Yeah. Okay. Originally, but this motor is a stock
19.
3.
So,
yeah.
Kidding. I'm giving you 2 horsepower for age.
Oh, yes. Right. That's how that works.
And this motor adds same power, 150 horsepower, but about 130 pound-feet of torque, so slightly less. It is. I'm just going to go through these specs and then we can just talk about stuff. Add, please, as I'm forgetting things. The system is $69,000 for the system and the software, and then the installation is another $6,000. So figure same $75,000.
Which is remarkable given that 6 years have elapsed and they have been very inflated years that the price has not inflated. So that's
Well, the price of batteries has
achievement.
probably come down tremendously.
Yeah.
And,
some refinements of the system, presumably.
This one needs also some stuff that the other car didn't. So without that CAN system, it needs a clutch pedal sensor. So it can disengage as soon as you go for the clutch. They smartly did a brake pressure sensor and at the rear wheels. And the reason here is because when you come off the power, you obviously want some regenerative braking, but you need to fade that out as you get closer to the limit of adhesion, or you're going to lock up the rear wheels. If you're on.
Did you experience the regen? Did you perceive the regen?
No,
I did once.
I did once because I had touched my foot on the clutch pedal and I felt a kick out. How did you?
I think that's probably potentially what I did too. But at some point, I felt the regen. Yeah, nudge.
I felt a little tiny nudge, and it's 40 Newton meters of regen. It's nothing crazy.
Right.
So they did obviously a clutch and then brake pressure sensor on the rear line, which is genius. They will do a throttle position sensor where needed, and some of these cars, like this one, just had a lot of these
watt switch,
effectively wide open throttle. So this now is a potentiometer, so it knows exactly how much throttle you're requesting.
Which is from a later 911. It's from a 3.6 liter car, so a 964 or a 993.
Yeah, a lot of cars in this generation of Bosch fuel management had a three-way switch, which was, are you at idle? Yes, no. Are you somewhere in the middle? Yes, no. Or are you at full throttle? Yes and no. And the idle setting just told it, hey, just monitor idle and use the idle control valve. Anywhere in the middle was use the oxygen sensor and just get the mixture right. And then somewhere at the top was wide open throttle, which is fuck the oxygen, fuck the environment, richen it the fuck up and make power.
Yeah.
The battery up front is still 1 kilowatt hour of capacity. They actually did boost by gear on this car, which is interesting.
In one gear.
Boost by first gear. In first gear, they halved the amount of assist torque just to protect the gearbox and output shafts and stuff like that.
Drive shafts.
And they did that by using just a rear axle speed sensor. So it knows the relationship between engine speed and road speed and
can deduce what gear it's in. Exactly. On that basis.
There are 2 liquid cooling loops, so that is no longer a strictly air cooled.
I know. When they mentioned that, I was like, oh, it's not air cooled after all.
It's hybrid. It's both. Best of it. It's like a 959.
It is exactly nothing like a 959, but other than that, yes, it's exactly like a 959.
Well, just as the 959 predicted the future, this predicted the future also because Porsche did hybridize. The next the next Turbo S will be hybrid, and the current GTS is hybrid. But there are 2 liquid cooling loops, one for the battery, which wants to be at room temperature or not much higher, and then
and the heat exchanger for that is in front of the engine's oil cooler inside of the front right fender.
Which I love how you got under this car and you noticed the first thing he's like, wow, you put smaller horns in to make room for the Vonin guys were like I warned you, he's a fucking encyclopedia. But you've owned a lot of these cars.
Yeah, I know what they're supposed to look like under there. So it has. So the sound of the starter and the sound of the horn will be different. If you're an air-cooled 911 purist,
I did not honk the horn.
Then those things will both be different. So hopefully you're okay with those things.
The second cooling circuit is for the motor and inverter, which can both see higher temperatures. And then finally, the last of my notes before I just got in and drove was that the motor itself is only 22 millimeters thick. So that's less than an inch.
I thought it was 70.
22 millimeter space for the motor. Maybe they just needed 22 millimeters of additional space, which would make sense because you're replacing a flywheel.
Yeah, I think it's 70 millimeters total thickness. And this was part of the reason why they've used a G50 car. The G50, the transmission actually mounts in a different location. And so that transmission was used 87 onwards, and they made a 5 and 6 speed version of it. So all air-cooled 911s from model year 87 onwards use the G50 transmission, which is physically longer, and it feels much more modern and pleasant to use. And now there's sort of a fetishization of G50 cars in the collector market because people say they're better. And they have hydraulic clutches. And the apparent dimensions of a 915 are such that which is the predecessor of the G50, which was used from 72 to 86, are such that there's not as much space in there, which is why if you want to put a G50 in an early car, you use a short bell housing on a G50, and then it will fit, and it'll put the mounts in a place that works for the early chassis car. So the chassis is actually different. They modified the tunnel, in the 87 model year to accommodate the new transmission. So currently, the system works in G50 cars and that are 6 cylinders. That is, we'll get to that in a minute also. And they had to slightly move the engine aft ever so slightly, and I would have never noticed this had they not told me that they did this. But the carrier for the engine at the back, when you open the engine compartment right there at the back of the engine compartment, is ever so slightly modified to move the engine back. I guess it's a few millimeters in order to make space. So other than that, imperceptible. And when you open the engine compartment, that and the fact that the inverter is in the engine compartment, living in the space that was previously occupied by the booster, the HVAC fan thing that lives on top of the left side of the motor.
Does that part's omission make a material difference to the car? Because the HVAC booster fan, what does it do?
It's for the automatic HVAC system, which was added. So the HVAC system in these Carrera 3.2s is absolutely hilariously
feeble,
archaic. Also, there's controls for the HVAC in 3 separate locations. There's next to the radiator, there's a panel, and then ahead of the shifter, there's a panel, and then between the seats, there's a panel. So like, it's all incredibly cryptic. Like, there's this really complicated diagram. None of it works. It's all bullshit. It's all just garbage. And so the HVAC system will work differently, but probably no worse because it worked like shit in the first place. You will probably have less automated control over fan speed, which is what the little box between the seats does. And I've actually never owned a car in which that system functioned. So I don't know but I have owned a bunch of them where it didn't function, and ones that were backdated. And the backdated, when you get rid of that little box thing, and then you just have like a master heater box control that determines whether the heat is on or not. And that works really well. And the engine fan does a bunch, and then there's fans in the dashboard, like for the defroster. So all that to say, like, maybe if you had one that was really working properly, you would notice a difference, but they never work unless you've done one of these.
Derek Tam-Scott has just admitted that Porsches are not perfect.
No, they're deeply flawed in a lot of ways.
But it doesn't matter for California because we don't have huge HVAC demand. I mean, the air conditioning never worked in any old cars.
That's true.
It's sufficiently to work in California.
So yeah, it's a very sort of
transmission was moved forward too, by the way, right? Yeah. So they moved the transmission slightly forward and the engine slightly rear, and then
that's where they make the space.
But if you think about if you have a CV, this is something that I had. It took me a second to wrap my head around 6 years ago. The CV will never have a perfect. It's never perfectly perpendicular to the transmission, right? It's always going to be at a bit of an angle, especially as the wheels move front to. Up and down. So moving the transmission back or forward at a little bit, an inch or so, in either direction will just change that angle slightly, and that's what CVs are made to compensate for. So you can actually push the transmission way back.
And in fact, Porsche did do this between 1968 and 69. They lengthened the wheelbase of the car, but they did not move where the engine or transmission were. They just moved the wheels back.
Yep. Yeah, so it's not a problem.
They lengthened the trailing arms and moved the wheel arch openings.
Called it a day.
Yeah. So if Porsche thought it was okay to do and did so.
Because everything that was okay in the 60s is okay today.
We drive old cars. There's some element of believing that fundamentally.
That's true.
By driving old cars.
Fair enough. If I ever bought a long hood, small displacement, early 911, I love that engine's sweetness. There's a sweetness to those 2.4s, and a 2.2 is small. 2.2.
Well, 2 liters were there.
Oh yeah, the smallest I've ever been was a 2 liter. It was
1991.
Total
CCs.
sweetheart.
Yeah,
total sweetheart.
2.2s are very nice also because they didn't change the stroke. 2.4s, which are actually 2340 something, typical German thing, where they count the next part of a liter.
And that's because it's not because Germans like to exaggerate. It's because German tax law was per 100 cc or portion thereof.
Correct. So the 2.2s and 2 liters are really charming and sweet-tempered and revvy, but obviously 130 horsepower in the original 2 liters, and then the hot 2 liters were 160 horsepower. Maybe they went to 170 when they introduced mechanical fuel injection in the S. The later S's, later than 1967, I should say.
Well, the first thing I would do is put the system in it.
Yeah, so that will require some engineering because of the placement of the transmission in the older cars. I think they seem confident that they could do it. And they did say that they have it going, a 915 installation coming for a 912. And of course, there's lots of space to move things around a 912 with a 4-cylinder because it's a physically shorter engine. So a 915 with this system in a 912 will be very interesting because 912s, are generally regarded by people to handle better. because of the weight distribution improvement, especially on those early cars, which had 4.5-inch wheels all around, and they weren't staggered. I mean, this is why 911s introduced staggered, wider rear tires to get a little more grip at the back. That's also why the wheelbase was lengthened for the 69 model year. So I imagine that this system with a hot 912 would be kind of a cool arrangement because
fast as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you add 150 horsepower. Those cars were 90 horsepower out of the box. If you build a hot rod, you get and if you do the Polo, which is a 4-cylinder version of a 911 engine, the Polo engine is a overhead cam rather than a push rod. Originally, the 912s were all push
from
rod
the
engines.
Volkswagen Polo.
No,
I was going to say because that
has nothing to do with the Volkswagen Polo. There's a company out there that makes a 4-cylinder version of the 911 engine, which is to say that it uses the architecture and dimensions of a 911 engine, which is to say that it has overhead cams, single overhead cams instead of push rod actuation, and it has a vertical cooling fan. So when you look at a Polo motor, it looks like a 911 motor, except for it's farther away because it's missing 2 cylinders. It's sitting, and they cut the 2 back ones off. And those, they'll make 150 to 200 horsepower probably out of an engine that is dimensionally as compact as a 912 engine. And then and the original 911 engine was 130 horsepower. So you're making more power with better weight distribution and probably revs better too because it's not push rod.
That doesn't sound good.
It's 4 cylinders. Yes, it's 4 cylinders. Correct. Yeah, it probably sounds like a Subaru or a dune buggy, or hot VW motor. Maybe, I don't know.
Let me ask a question. What would a Polo engine cost? Sort of run of the mill average.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
More than the system?
No.
Okay.
So, but what I'm saying is you pair the system with a Polo motor.
Oh, well,
then you're sort of at low 300s with the weight distribution of a 912.
Yeah. But here's the thing: is I would pair it with if they can do it in a 911 with a 6-cylinder, and that's clearly possible. I would pair it with an early 2-liter and have 2.2 or
2.2S motor because
does it matter?
Well. So when they first introduced fuel injection in 1969 with the 2-liter cars, you could get the T, E, or the S, and you got 110, 140, and 170 horsepower, I think, in the T, E, and S. It's all the same displacement. It's all about state of tune. The E and S were injected, the T was carbureted. And under 100 miles an hour, the E was quicker than the S because of they basically made a race motor and put it in the S. And then, the reality of driving around in an S is that at the top of the rev range, it's doing race car things and it's really cooking. And the rest of the time, it's like not on cam yet. And it's really kind of unhappy. And so if you were to sort of supplement torque fill, if you will, which is now very much in use, to an S motor, I think that would really make it kind of the best of both worlds because you would still get that really spicy, racy, high-end motor character. But you'd also have meaningful torque that made the car really usable at low speeds. So I think that would be my recommendation as the next frontier. This is obviously easier because we talked about the dimensional differences of a G50 application, and I think these cars are more likely to be bought by people who are open to this type of intervention in a car. I think the old school, old timer people with carburetors. I mean, how cool would it be also to have a carbureted hybrid car?
And by the way, there's this system doesn't use any of the fuel injection system, so it would be just as easy to install on a carbureted car. It'd be wild having what I really want to experience is a car that's not running perfectly with this. So a car that has like transient stumbling response to the carburetors often does. You go for the gas, but it takes the fuck off while it's stumbling would be kind of a mind fuck, right?
For sure. I would enjoy that application. And then as we were thinking about other places where this would potentially be interesting, I naturally thought about the 930.
Oh my God.
Because those cars have no power or torque below 3,500 and very tall gearing.
So that 930 is for non-Porsche people, the original 911 Turbo.
Yes.
It had 6.5 to 1 compression.
Yeah, in the 3-liter form. And then it was a lofty 7 to 1 in the 3.3s.
And if you don't understand the term turbo lag until you've driven one. Yeah. And I don't remember if the one that I drove was a 6.5 or it was a 3-liter or 3.3. It was on one of the Driving While Awesome rallies that we went on.
That was a 3.3.
That was a 3.3?
That was a gray 3.3. It was an early, I think it was a gray early 3.3.
I have never experienced an engine that I would say it didn't make any power, but the better description is it didn't make enough power to run.
Yeah.
I was shocked it was able to. It was so fucking slow off boost.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I'm about to drive a 3-liter, and I can't wait because it was geared stupid long, stupidly wide for the 4-speed, and you would just be matted. You drove it like a Mercedes 240D with 50 horsepower. Just to leave the line, you were foot
wide open throttle
the entire.
And heaven forbid you need to do a hill start.
Oh God, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I had one and I lived in San Francisco and I sold it. I put 500 miles on it and sold it.
It is one of the least responsive engines I've ever encountered.
Yeah,
ever.
they're awful. That's why so many of those cars are modified.
Yeah, I would immediately, and they're probably huge money. I don't follow them.
Yeah, they are.
The first thing that I would do one of these systems, it would be amazing, especially if you could do different modes where you had torque fill, where it would just fill in the torque until the boost hits, and then it could use a boost pressure sensor to just peter out the electric resistance, or just keep the character of the car, but plus.
But just make it so that it's usable off boost. Yeah. The fundamental issue with the 930, I don't object to turbo lag. I object to the fact that the car has absolutely no power when it's off boost. And so if it's not the lag that's the problem, it's the what you're experiencing when you're off boost.
It's one thing to say no power though, and it doesn't go.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's fine and then it becomes fast.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, an SC with 180 horsepower is way faster off the line than a 930 that has 280 horsepower.
Right. The definition of a motor vehicle or an automobile is that there has to be
motions.
Right. It
locomotes.
This car has a 930 has a real genuine problem locomoting.
Yeah.
Like you have to fight with it to move.
Yeah.
And I love that on like an old diesel something. But then the change in personality that happens 2, 3, 10, 40 seconds after you've asked for power could make it exhilarating, but at that point it's just too late.
Yeah, and if heaven forbid that you're doing anything other than going perfectly straight when that happens and you suddenly triple the horsepower, then that is why those cars have a widowmaker reputation and got crashed backwards a lot.
Yeah. No,
very interesting idea for a 4-speed 930, although the right answer to a 4-speed 930 is a 5-speed 930. Or
just a
regular naturally aspirated 911. Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed about this that impressed me, or I don't know what I was expecting, but the character of the car is very much preserved. The total amount of torque that you have available still follows exactly the power curve, because if you imagine the electric system is delivering a fixed amount and then the engine's power is just overlaid on top of that, it just moves the curve upwards. So you still have this sort of build of power and torque as you rev it out, which is nice.
That's what I showed on the dyno. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And so that's why it would be particularly charming, I think, in these peaky early low displacement cars, which would still rev really nicely and make all these great noises.
It would be, but let me say it's perfect in that car too. I literally said
a standard 3.2 is quite slow. It's true.
It's there. Yeah. Unless you're caning them, they're slow. It's just sluggish. This fixed that. I would do this in a second if I had one of these cars.
Yeah.
Obviously, cost is an issue.
Yes. Although these cars, a standard Carrera 3.2, what year are we in? 2015? Yes. 10 years ago, 2015 was. I'm trying to. Okay. So 10 years ago, a Carrera 3.2 was worth a G50 coupe with this mileage was worth $35,000. And now this car's 142,000 miles. That car today is worth $80,000, I would say. So the value has more than doubled. And I think that would continue to hold true. A really fantastic virginal 3.2, although maybe you wouldn't do that with one of those. Do this with one of those is 125 to 150, maybe even.
Why wouldn't you? It's not like you're cutting holes all over the car. I mean, they're fasteners and small holes for conduits apparently, but you're not chopping up a transmission tunnel or anything else.
Yeah, depends on the car. And its condition.
I mean, a 20,000 mile collector car that's untouched.
I'm also just imagining a situation in which you have a tired original motor and you leave it to continue to burn oil and just put the hybrid system in.
Why not? I mean, that
to
brings up a
preserve
question.
the old car experience.
So the way to fix all of these early cars in terms of power is displacement. So the peak there is a 3.6-ish, the reasonable peak.
3.8.
Right? 3.8. So a 3.8 liter twin plug, blah, 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 the other
Yes.
Porsche weenie talk.
Yep.
And so let's talk about that. Then you're talking 340, 330 horsepower, something like that, I'm guessing?
Yeah, if it's like a really spicy build with modern fuel injection.
Okay. And what would that engine, because Porsche prices are nuts for engine builds, what would a really spicy, not nuts, but a reliable, streetable 300 and something horsepower 3.8 cost to build?
$30,000 to $50,000.
Okay. So you're at $50,000-ish, right? At 30 to 50 installed? Or that's...
Yes, and then you got to do some kind of exhaust system, or you could use the standard one, but you don't really want to do that.
You can't pass emissions ever again.
Yeah.
So you're not that far off from being able to keep everything the same.
Well, and then the place where this really starts to make sense, I suppose, is if you're going to do one of these sort of like not a Singer build necessarily, but a sort of expensive refresh where that has like the basket weaved leather in it and the square weave carpeting, and you might do a cosmetic backdate and do all this sort of this spiffing up restorations that are pretty widespread of 911s, and then you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars anyway. A $75,000 powertrain upgrade is very easy to rationalize in that context, and that's probably a place where it is mega compelling to do something like this.
Would you, at that point, if you had a $200,000 budget, let's say $250,000, would you build a crazy 3.8 or crazy 3.6, or would you do something like this?
I'd buy a 964 RS.
If you had, you've had a car for 20 years.
Yep.
It's this,
sure,
and you love it, and you don't want to keep it.
Yep.
You would do this.
What would I do?
And you wanted to daily it or drive it regularly.
So the issue with this is because a 3.2 is a sort of fuel injected, sort of pleasant streetcar engine from the 80s that was meant to be sold to the public. And I would want to build something kind of spicy and then add this to it.
Okay. Well, look, I said you have a $200,000 budget, so go for it. I mean,
that would be pretty interesting because this conversion is very compelling when you can build a really peaky motor but still have reasonable torque, and then you get the best of both worlds. But and these engines rev, I think, to 6250. But if you build a spicy, so the standard 3.2 they got from the 3 liter to the 3.2 by stroking it. And the way you would, there's a so-called 3.2 short stroke, which is to say that you put bigger pistons and cylinders in, but you leave the stroke intact, and then it's a higher revving, more vintage, it's more GT3-esque kind of power delivery where it is happier to rev. And, the ideal would be to do a hot short stroke motor with this setup as well, and then you can sort of build a nice peaky motor that's really exciting and still have lots of torque. So I mean, that's the dream outcome, and that's why we were talking about 2 and 2.2 liter engines or 2.5 short strokes, any of the short stroke engines which is to say you take some maxed version of the previous displacement and you expand the displacement through bore, which is how they went from 3.6 to 3.8 also. So yeah, basically keep a short stroke, build a high revving engine that has kind of a racy character, and be okay with it because you have
filling in the mid-range with electrons. I mean, when I was in the market for a 911 many years ago and thought I wanted one, what I loved about the 2.7 in the Carrera, it's 2.7 in SC, right? 911 SC.
That's 3 liters.
It's 3 liters. Sorry. 3 liter it was kind of tractable all over, but then didn't wake up top, and I was a little bit underwhelmed with it. And then I went and drove a Carrera 3.2, loved the power delivery, but I was on a racetrack. I was at Weissach, actually, Porsche's proving ground, and then came back and drove one on the street. And I just said, all right, this is period correct. Where's the beef?
Yeah.
There's just nothing ever. And
that's why they went to the 3.6, because the 3.6 gave a really big torque. I mean, cubes.
Still, I mean, even 993s were not that.
Well, they got heavy. If you drive a 3.6 in a light car, then it's not a problem.
It's not a problem, yeah.
But yes, there's definitely, 993 is kind of sleepy. All 911s almost are kind of sleepy.
Well, until you get to 996, right? Then you had twin cam, variable valve timing, vario cam instead of just vario ram, which was an intake
resonance
thing. 996s woke up the top and pulled like a motherfuckers up the top. Even the small motor 3.4 was the smallest one, right? But they had enough torque down low that the cars were pleasant everywhere.
3.6s are like the 3.6 air-cooled cars are like that, as long as it's not too heavy of a car
and it's not too cammed, right? So from the factory, they're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so impressed. I was so curious to see how this would work with without having CAN bus data. And there's a lot to consider, but actually the engine doesn't care.
It's extremely transparent. You wouldn't know that it's there, which is the ultimate compliment you can pay, because it preserves the character of the car, which is, the reason why someone would buy a car like this in the first place. Any air-cooled Porsche is for character, and it certainly preserves that. I would, it also poses an interesting question generally about like hybridization and resto mods. People often ask me about resto mods. I'm starting to understand more as I get a better handle on the preferences of the next generation of car enthusiasts, like what people want in resto mods and why there's so much interest in them and why so many people are doing them. The other question that I wanted to pose was, what other vintage cars do we know that would, really benefit from this?
All of them.
Yeah.
I mean, intuitively, I say all of them, because what it does is make the car that much faster with no change other than the starter motor. So what I will tell you, I would never do one of these in
a V12.
Or an E30.
Anything where you really like
M20. Yeah, it's got a great starter sound. Anything without a great starter sound or a defining characteristic of the engine is what of a starter sound, I would absolutely, because it doesn't change anything about the way the engine works. Engines, I love engines with big builds. I would
not do it in a car that has too much power already.
No. Okay, fair point.
Some cars, you drive them and you're like, that was terrifying. It absolutely does not need more power.
But was there anything in that era? I mean, cars that had too much
Cobra?
power? Oh, yeah, but that's not this era. I mean...
Oh, you're talking about the 80s.
Yeah, 70s, 80s, 90s.
I'd say any old car, though, it could potentially be interesting. But yeah, anything like... Sometimes you drive a 1950s car or 40s or pre-war car, and you're like, oof, the steering and the suspension, this thing is slow as shit, and it still has too much power.
Yeah, it doesn't need any more.
So any car that doesn't need too much, more power, like, would you do it in a Citroen DS? Yes, definitely.
I mean, if I go through my own personal garage, I would do it in one of the E30s so that I still had the starter sound, and I would not do it in the CSI because of the V12 starter sound. But short of that, I would do it in all of my cars. Why not? I mean, it's very expensive, right?
Yes.
Especially as a percentage of what the car's worth, because it would be over 100%.
It'd be very, very funny in the cabriolet.
Yeah. I mean, I've already
the cabriolet is
power.
$12,000 on a good day, right?
I don't know. But the Cabrio, like the new Mark III Cabrio that I bought, puts the slow in 2 points. I genuinely cannot believe how fucking slow that car is. And the engine never wakes up and never sounds great and. But it makes 115 horsepower. If I could add 150 to that and just have this silent, because it's just a characterless silent, overhead cam, 2-valve per cylinder, 4-cylinder, but have 300 or 200, even if it only added 100 horsepower, 215 horsepower, and just light them up all the way through first and second, it would be so hilarious that, I would do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would do it. And just get the same gas mileage on the highway. It just, because it doesn't, or it probably would use a little bit more gas on the highway.
Yeah, maybe some resistance.
I'm sure there's some inefficiency somewhere. I mean, it will regeneratively charge and actually will charge the battery under cruising and sort of normal throttle openings until it's full. And I forgot to ask the guys when they were here if you can plug it in, and I don't think you can.
I didn't see any provision for that.
Yeah, it would be nice if you had the ability to just hook up a 120 volt. So as a 1 kilowatt hour battery.
I'm trying to imagine if there's a scenario in which this thing ever gets better fuel economy. It would be like if you use the same rate of acceleration that you did if it wasn't a hybrid, would it get better fuel economy?
Yeah.
Because you're using lower throttle application.
In the city, if you're not crazy.
If you're gentle.
If you're gentle, it would be.
Although it doesn't really generate too much power until you reach a certain throttle opening anyway, right? It's intended to...
Yeah. In some modes.
Yeah.
Right? Every mode is different. So shadow...
Right. We had a number of curves that were depicted where it showed that in different modes it would introduce electric power at varying levels of throttle opening.
Right. And in shadow mode, it actually will come in pretty early, and the car just feels fucking big block.
Yeah.
Sport mode actually doesn't really do much until you get to a much
Yeah, I think it was 80% throttle.
80% throttle.
Like that.
And then it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And overboost, I don't even know if I did on this car. Overboost on the last car, it overheated everything so quickly that it kind of wasn't worth it. And the thing about overboost is you're talking about amps that are heating stuff up. So having so it's low RPM, high output actually heated things up much more quickly, counterintuitively, but torque will cost you more than horsepower gain. And so overboost from 2000 RPM, boom, you've overheated the system very quickly, especially if it's starting out warm. I think overboost it's great as there as a parlor trick. I would put it in as a kick down switch at the bottom to just give me everything the car has. Bottom of the accelerator pedal travel.
Yeah.
But short of that, I would just want it to be active all the time and ready to go. And if I'm merging, foot on the floor and the thing goes. Otherwise, just maintain the battery at 80% state of charge or whatever you're happy at.
It was also very sort of friendly power delivery because the maximum output from the electric system is 130 foot-pounds of torque, and at low RPM, the engine's not doing very much either. So even if you were to mat it at 2000 RPM, you're still having a sensible level of torque that's probably 200 something foot-pounds of torque at that moment. And so it never explodes. It's not a spiky or power delivery. It's very sort of linear and friendly in the way that it puts down power. It does not feel overpowered.
No.
A really light car with a big motor in it oftentimes feels overpowered because it will immediately just explode sideways or whatever. And this wasn't like that because, you're relying on the torque that the engine has down low, which is, and 130 foot-pounds from the hybrid system is not enough to ever...
Right, especially with long gearing. Funny enough, I didn't even notice that it cut the power in first gear, cut assist by half, because I took off the line and I did a sort of clutch engage, full clutch out, mat it from 1000 RPM off, and then in shadow mode. And I just started laughing in shadow mode because it just felt like the car gained another couple liters of displacement with no change at all in personality. You still get all that big.
Yeah.
And I didn't even notice that it was only half the assist in first gear. Second gear, the difference is huge. I mean, coming into corners, I did get it pretty hot pretty quickly coming up this one hill section because I was, in third or fourth gear at 2000 RPM going up this hill. Again, lower RPM is going to generate more heat. But it was why rev the shit out of it? This thing has got magic torque, but then when you downshift, it's still got that much more power. So it's not like Ferrari boost by gear where you're better off or you're just as fast in fifth gear as you would be in second, and there's no incentive to rev it out.
Yeah.
I adore it. I absolutely love it. I'm so
really
thrilled.
Impressive execution because, the true North Star is the character of the car, which is
fully unchanged.
Preserved.
It drove, I would say that car with the hybrid system on drove exactly like what I would fantasize a stock 3.2 Carrera would drive like. Kind of power everywhere with a big build, all the noise, all the weirdness of
old 911s.
Yeah,
floor-mounted pedals
with
and
great
all that
response.
stuff. And steering.
Great steering. But, I realized that the pedal box on these cars is so small that my foot kept getting stuck between the bottom of the brake pedal and the firewall, I guess it is.
Never have that issue.
Yeah, I've wide feet and it just kept getting stuck there. I mean, it's just, you're past the point of noticing weird 911-ness. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I wish I had the money to buy a Carrera 3.2 and then put the system in it.
Yeah. Would be great in an old carbureted car.
Anything.
I think, with low displacement.
I mean, imagine that in Alpha GTV.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
All that four-cylinder induction noise and then...
And it goes to 10,000 RPM. I asked about that.
The motor itself is capable.
Yes.
10,000.
So if you have anything that revs past 10,000 RPM, then it's maybe not the best answer for you. Well, shit. Yeah. I don't feel too bad for you if you have anything that revs past 10,000 RPM. Yeah.
But no, I would love it if Vonin could just do an off-the-shelf kit that would just replace everyone's clutch and flywheel. That will never happen. It's just too difficult.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you have to engineer a bespoke installation that makes space.
You could do something like an E-Rod LS motor that GM does. It's like, here it is off the shelf, adapted to fit your car.
Yes.
Would be amazing. It's not going to be that easy, but I fantasize about a world where I could just do one of these systems in each one of the cars, even if it was running at 50 horsepower or 80 horsepower, and it was as economies of scale and batteries become cheaper and everything else. Imagine if this was like a $15,000 kit and it was 70 or 80 horsepower off the shelf.
Yeah, basically it needs to, how much would it cost to add 80 horsepower to X car?
Yeah.
And then it needs to,
But you're always going to change the personality of the car.
Yeah.
That's the thing is there's no free lunch.
Yes.
So you're going to build some angry, big,
peaky,
hammy, peaky, miserable car that gets shit gas mileage and smokes.
And it makes shitloads of horsepower from 6,300 to 6,800, right. And then it's useless otherwise.
Right. I mean, that's why I fucked up and did such a mild cam on my E30 wagon. I did the Schrick's modest cam, the smallest one, because the car already makes no torque down low. And I thought, I'll fix that. And I made 1 more horsepower. So I would love to pull that cam out and go to a more aggressive one, but then I'm eliminating all the benefits I got from going from a 2.5 liter to a 6.7. Yeah. So you're stuck in this endless cycle of
That's why everybody
compromise.
puts S50s and stuff, but then you don't have the character of an M20.
Right. So this is the best way to preserve that. I think it's so cool. I'm so glad that Vonin kept working on it. And
future is bright, maybe, to be a car enthusiast, even if you do like the character of an old car.
So long as you're rich.
So long as you're rich. That's true.
That's true of everything.
Most things in life. Okay.
Very cool to come back 6.5 years later and have the same sort of experience of like, no.
And in a car with that much more character, because it really does suit the vintage character. It makes more sense here, I think, than it does in a modern car.
Let me be honest. It made almost no sense in a 991 at the time. I was amazed at how well integrated it was. And I'm sure I'm not the only one.
But it's already such a fast car. Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't need it. This genuinely needs it. And it got it. And one of the few instances of be careful what you ask for, because if you get it, it's fucking exactly what you wanted. Mm-hmm. That never happens. Mm-hmm. I'll take mine in a 2.316 with this power. And think about all the another 100
anything that's a great
horsepower.
Engine that just isn't that fast, but the engine itself has a great character.
And I love the idea of working an engine, blah, 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 blah. But like a Honda Beat, I mean, it would crack in half. I did sell the Beat, and I haven't admitted that publicly yet.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think you have. No?
I don't think I did. I haven't posted on Instagram. It all happened at Car Week.
I think you might have on Carmudgeon.
Oh, I might have. It all happened before my head was spinning, and I was like, "Oh, it's gone." Shit!
Congratulations!
Yes, thank you.
Well, on that bombshell, it's time to leave.
Oh yes, exactly. Time to finish the episode. Thanks for joining.
We'll see you next week. You'll see us next week, or hear us,
or not if they're bored by this vintage 911 stuff. That's a lot of background noise, isn't it? Hopefully they can hear that.
Otherwise,
it's the Vonin. While it's sitting there, it sounds just like a drill.
Mm-hmm.
Or a saw.
Okay.
Bye.